Near Zaporizhzhia, Russia's seemingly invincible $180 million Iron Fist of 40 T-90mm tanks was utterly destroyed in just 72 minutes. The defense was mounted by a Ukrainian force costing less than $5 million, consisting of 2,000 FPV drones and 168 elite fighters on dirt bikes. This revolutionary ambush, commanded by Major Ulena Kovalenko, utilized a swarm and snipe doctrine. Drones first employed electronic warfare to blind and immobilize the column, then delivered devastating top-attack strikes. The thermal camera footage from a reconnaissance drone reveals a supreme predator prowling in the night. It is a formation of 40 T-90mm Pro Riv tanks, known as Russia's Iron Fist, a modern, elite, and seemingly unstoppable force with a total value exceeding $180 million USD. They are churning through the muddy fields of Zaporizhzhia, deployed to punch a hole straight through Ukraine's defensive lines. The sight radiates a colossal, raw power, an image of invincibility. But this predator is walking into a deadly trap. The force awaiting this armored fist is not other tanks, nor artillery batteries. What awaits them are 2,000 tiny buzzing FPV drones, some costing less than a family pizza, along with 168 elite Ukrainian fighters on dirt bikes. This is the story of the $4 million USD swarm that annihilated a $180 million USD tank battalion in just 72 minutes. It was a battle that not only shifted the dynamics of the Southern Front, but sent a shockwave through every military command around the globe. The fateful day was September 14, 2025. The air was cool and heavy with the smell of damp earth from recent rains. For a week, the front lines south of Orikhiv had been mired in a deadlock of mud and steel. The Russian High Command, impatient, ordered the 291st Guards Motor Rifle Regiment to execute a plan bearing the arrogant and brutal name Operation Iron Breaker. Their mission was a decisive armored thrust, a classic blitzkrieg punch designed to crush the Ukrainian defenses. The unit selected was a battalion tactical group, BTG, built around the best 40 T-90mm tanks backed by dozens of BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles and their own mobile air defense systems. These soldiers were not conscripts with outdated equipment. They were professionals completely confident in their machine's power. On the opposing side, the unit monitoring them was the Mobile Defense Force of the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade. Their call sign, the Hornets. They were commanded by Major Ulena Kovalenko. They represented a new generation of warriors, tech-savvy, agile, and fiercely determined. They had no tanks to match the T-90s, but they had something else: ingenuity. For days, Ukrainian intelligence had tracked the buildup. Satellite photos, confirmed by local partisans, showed fuel trucks, ammo crates, and rows of armor assembling. They knew a major offensive was coming, just not exactly where the hammer would fall. Kovalenko's plan was a high-stakes gamble, an ambush reliant on perfect timing, technology, and the enemy acting exactly as predicted. Now, one might ask, how do you even begin to stop a force like that? It's a genuine tactical problem. Do you attempt a frontal assault and risk being overwhelmed? Or do you let them walk into a trap where their greatest strength, their concentrated firepower, becomes their greatest weakness? Kovalenko chose the trap. Her 250 soldiers were a mix of elite motorbike teams and, most crucially, 82 drone operators hidden in camouflaged positions miles away. They were the heart of the operation. The ambush didn't begin with a bang, but with a whisper. At 08:05, the first wave of 100 Pathfinder reconnaissance drones, simple models, silently took to the gloomy sky. They quickly established visual contact, providing a clear picture of the advancing formation. The Russian BTG was moving as expected, channeled by swampland onto the narrow farm road TZ-8003. They felt safe, encased in steel. At Oru 8:15, the lead tank rolled into the predetermined kill zone. Major Kovalenko gave one quiet command: "Activate Banshee." Simultaneously, 20 specialized electronic warfare drones began to shriek. Not an audible shriek, but a deafening roar in the radio frequency spectrum. They targeted Russian command and control frequencies and, critically, their GLONASS navigation system. Imagine being a Russian tank commander. One moment, you have clear comms with your battalion commander and a precise location on your digital map. The next moment, nothing, just the static shriek of interference. Your screen flashes an error. Signal lost. Chaos was the first weapon. Then came the second. Swarm 1. Engage targets Alpha and Omega. The first attack wave of 200 FPV drones peeled off. These were the Cornet 7 models. They were just a frame, a motor, a camera, and a 1.5 kilo warhead. They were fast, hitting 140 km/h, but they were not yet meant to kill. Not yet. This was a surgical action. The drones dove, operators watching through grainy video feeds, guiding them with practiced hands. They slammed into the tracks of the lead T-90 Ami. Sparks flew. Steel groaned. The massive tank ground to a halt. Its left track was a mangled, distorted mess. Seconds later, the same thing happened to the last tank in the column. The Steel Serpent was now stuck, boxed in. Simultaneously, other drones in this first wave had another priority. They ignored the tanks entirely and dove into the two Panzer S-1 air defense vehicles escorting the formation. Their warheads, modified RKG-3 anti-tank grenades, were just powerful enough. One Panzer was crippled, its radar array shattered. The other spat a pillar of smoke, its ammunition cooking off in a secondary explosion. In just 90 seconds of engagement, the entire column was immobilized, deaf, and blind to the sky. The Russian response was total disarray. Isolated and unable to communicate, commanders began firing machine guns wildly into the air. They were shooting at ghosts. But this was only the start. The real storm was about to break. Now, with the Russian formation motionless and disoriented, Phase 2 began. The sky darkened. It wasn't a storm cloud. It was the main swarm. 2,500 FPV drones ascended simultaneously. We've seen movies with fake-looking CGI swarms. This was real. A living nightmare of buzzing carbon fiber hornets, each carrying a shaped charge capable of destroying a tank. High above, spotter drones orbited at altitudes outside machine gun range. They acted as the eyes of the swarm, identifying targets and relaying data to the FPV operators hiding in trenches miles away. This was networked warfare in its most brutal form. The drones did not hit the frontal or side armor. That would be a waste. They utilized the tactic that traditional armor was never truly designed to defeat: top attack. They dove almost vertically, hitting the softest points of the T-90 MEM, the turret roof, the engine deck, the sophisticated optics. The tank's expensive explosive reactive armor, ERE, designed to defeat missiles from the front, was virtually useless against an attack from directly above. The first hits were concussive. A drone hit a turret. The shaped charge punched through the thin roof armor, jetting molten metal inside. The crew was killed instantly. The tank went silent. Another hit crippled an engine, and the massive vehicle began belching thick black smoke. But then, at 08:32, the pivotal moment arrived. These were not random attacks. They were coordinated. Major Kovalenko ordered a volley strike. 50 drones, their targets pre-assigned by spotters, dove onto 50 different vehicles at the very same instant. The result was apocalyptic. A T-90M's autoloader carousel, which holds its shells beneath the turret, was penetrated. The ensuing explosion was catastrophic. The entire 12-ton turret was blown clean off the hull and tossed 50 ft into the air, spinning like a coin. This phenomenon is called the Jack-in-the-Box explosion, and it happened again and again. Down the line of the stuck tanks, a chain reaction of colossal fireballs erupted. Each fireball marked the tomb of a $4.5 million USD tank and its crew. The psychological shock to the surviving Russian soldiers was immeasurable. Their invincible machines, the pride of the Russian military, were being systematically erased by what looked like toys. Panic began to set in. But this is where the friction of war came into play. Victory is never clean. Just as the swarm reached peak effectiveness, a dying Orlan 10 reconnaissance drone, its wings shot to pieces, managed to relay one last burst of data before crashing. It was the partial location of Kovalenko's command post. The Russians, desperate, reacted instantly. Their nearest artillery battalion, miles away, unleashed a blind barrage toward those coordinates. Kovalenko's screen flashed red. "Incoming! Incoming!" Her comms officer screamed. This was the moment of near failure. The entire plan was on the verge of collapse. Kovalenko made her choice in a flash. "All stations continue attack. Displace now. Go." She wouldn't run. She trusted her people to do their job while she moved, but it was too late for everyone. A shell landed on a relay antenna, and the video feed from dozens of drones instantly turned to static. Another shell struck a trench holding a team of 8 drone operators. They were gone. The cost of this victory was being paid in real time. The swarm was now partially blinded. The perfect networked coordination had been broken. For a split second, it looked as if the remaining Russian tanks might rally to form a pocket of resistance. The momentum was faltering. It was in this moment of chaos that a junior sergeant watching the EW drone feeds noticed something. "Major, the Russian command network, they are trying to shift frequencies. They are coordinating a breakout to the west." He had identified their escape plan before they could execute it. It was a small act of ingenuity from a low-ranking soldier that changed everything. Kovalenko, grabbing a radio while her team packed equipment into a truck, recalibrated the remaining drones and issued her final command. "All Hornets, all teams, launch." With the Russian formation shattered and the command structure in tatters, the final phase began. This was the coup de grace. From concealed positions in the tree line, 168 motorbike warriors erupted. These were 2-person teams on dirt bikes, the equivalent of modern-day cavalry. They were fast, agile, and carried some of the deadliest anti-tank weapons on the planet. The rider behind each carried either a Ukrainian-made Stugna missile or an American FGM-148 Javelin. This wasn't a swarm attack. This was a wolf pack descending on wounded prey. They used the terrain, racing between copses of trees, creating fleeting targets. One team crested a small ridge. The gunners spotted a T-90 attempting to turn, its crew disoriented. He locked on with the Javelin. The Javelin is a fire-and-forget missile. Its genius lies in its trajectory. It doesn't fly straight. It pops up, then plunges, hitting the tank from the top. Match the specs to the reality. The Javelin's tandem thermal warhead is designed to first defeat reactive armor, then punch through over 600 millimeters of steel. The T-90's turret roof is perhaps only 50 millimeters thick. It was like hitting an egg with a sledgehammer. The missile hit. This time, there was no massive fireball, just a dull thump and a sudden, violent overpressure that blew the hatches open from the inside. The tank was dead. Before any other tank could react, the motorbike was gone, speeding toward a new firing position. This was the shoot and scoot massacre. They attacked from multiple angles simultaneously, a Stugna P team set up. Unlike the Javelin, the Stugna is a laser-guided missile. The gunner can be up to 50 meters away from the launcher, guiding the missile via fiber optic cable from the safety of a ditch. He centered the crosshairs on another T-90, attempting to flee into the mud. He fired. The missile hissed toward the target for 5 agonizing seconds. He held the laser steady. Hit. Another $4.5 million USD tank was turned into a burning wreck by a $25,000 missile. The friction of war was still present. One motorbike team, accelerating too fast out of a firing position, hydroplaned in the slick mud. The bike tipped. The 2 soldiers were thrown off, but they were exposed. A remaining BMP-3, its main gun damaged, lumbered around and opened up with its coaxial machine gun. Tracer rounds tore across the field. The 2 soldiers did not survive. Heroism in battle is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to operate in spite of it. Imagine being one of those motorbike riders. You are on a dirt bike, wearing body armor, voluntarily speeding toward a cornered 70-ton main battle tank, a machine that could erase you with a single round. That is a level of courage that is difficult to comprehend. By 0845, all organized Russian resistance had totally collapsed. The surviving crews, utterly broken, popped their hatches and fled on foot, abandoning their state-of-the-art machines. The drones now take on a different role. They became hunters, tracking these small groups and relaying their positions to the advancing Ukrainian infantry to secure the area. The battle was over. The aftermath was a scene out of hell. Along the kilometer-long farm road, 34 T-90 Memard tanks were twisted, burning wrecks. The air was thick with the smell of diesel, cordite, and death. This was not a battle. It was an annihilation. The entire Russian battalion tactical group had ceased to exist as a fighting force in just 72 minutes. Ukrainian losses were not zero. They lost 8 soldiers, including the drone team and the motorbike crew, and 17 were wounded. But the cost inflicted on the attackers was staggering. Nearly $180 million USD of equipment destroyed at a cost of only under $5 million USD. But the most prized trophy was not the destroyed tanks. It was the 4 T-90s that were abandoned completely intact. They were an intelligence bonanza, an opportunity for Ukraine and its NATO allies to dissect Russia's premier tank piece by piece. So what did this all mean? What were the lessons from this brutal, asymmetrical encounter? First, this battle proved that the era of the traditional tank assault, the armored spearhead punching through enemy lines, is perhaps over. A massive investment in a single power platform can be made completely obsolete by a networked, low-cost, smart, and distributed swarm of expendable assets. Consider the economics. For the price of 1 T-90mm tank, Ukraine could field over 6,000 FPV Cornet 7 drones. Quantity itself has a quality, especially when that quantity is smart and networked. This is the definition of asymmetric warfare. The second lesson is about tactical innovation. The Ukrainians didn't invent the drone or the anti-tank missile, but they combined them in a novel way. The swarm and snipe doctrine is a breakthrough. Use a cheap, expendable swarm to fix, disorient, blind, and degrade a superior armored force. Then, use highly mobile cavalry units armed with powerful missiles to deliver the killing blow. It flips the battlefield. The tank is no longer the hunter. It is the prey. Finally, this is a story of human ingenuity. This victory was not won by a superweapon. It was won by Major Kovalenko's brilliant planning, by a junior sergeant who recognized a frequency shift, by drone pilots with gamer skills, and by motorbike riders with incredible courage. It was the triumph of adaptability over dogma, of a network over a hierarchy. The global message here is a stark warning to every major military power on Earth. The future of war isn't just about who has the most expensive tank or the fastest jet. It's about who can innovate the fastest. It's about who can leverage cheap, commercial technology to achieve asymmetrical results. An army clinging to old doctrines, no matter how powerful its traditional hardware, is an army destined for the scrapyard. This engagement on a muddy road in Ukraine is a terrifying glimpse into the future of ground combat.